Hi everyone, it's me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alanna and I'm a Canadian, but I have been living here in the UK for the last 7 years. And today, I want to talk about bread. So the story goes, recently I went home to Canada. I'm gonna put this down. This is gonna get distracting. Recently I went home to Canada and my partner and I were having lunch. It's like toast and eggs or something. And we're sitting there and we're eating, and he goes, "This doesn't taste right." And I go, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Why is the bread sweet?" My life is now divided into two parts: before the bread mystery and after. One of the things I love about being a Canadian living here in the UK are taste tests. I love trying British food and British drink and snacks and sweets and traditional stuff and just all of it. I love it. But typically when I go back to Canada, I just eat like whatever my mom eats. Like I just eat some stuff like from childhood that maybe I can't get here. Just, you know, I'm not doing anything too adventurous. But I never really noticed anything different per se with the food back in Canada. But ever since he said, "Is the bread sweet?" I can't unsee it. I can't unhear it. I can't untaste it. I was today years old when I learned that sugar is often added to bread made in the US and Canada. But why? Why does the bread need to be sweet? A lot of sources online seem to think that sugar is added to bread in North America to preserve the freshness, add sort of a soft texture, and to add sweetness. I think the preserve freshness makes a lot of sense. I would imagine that bread made in America or Canada has to travel quite far. Long distances, at least compared to the UK. So of course you want bread that will last from the creation through the transport to making it to the store and being put up on the shelf. But I also think that North American taste buds have grown accustomed to things that are just slightly more sweet. I think where you perhaps eat certain things as a child that are quite sweet and you don't know that things have added sugar in them, as you get older, your taste buds, I honestly do think, sort of lean towards the sweetness. So you don't even notice that your bread is sweeter than everyone else's bread. It just tastes like bread to you. To any non-Americans like my partner eating this bread, it tasted weird and it was noticeable. Now, one thing to know, of course, Canada and the US, two different countries, but a lot of our products, our food is very, very similar. Of course, there are different regulations and perhaps changes in ingredients, but they are very similar. Now, sugar added to bread actually was in the news. I don't know if you guys remember Subway. Do you remember the Subway drama? Not that drama, the other one. So in Ireland, a judge ordered that Subway bread was not bread at all. This was because the sugar content used in Subway bread was so high that the court ruled it more like confectionery, more like cake than bread. So basically, when you go to Subway and you have your 6-inch, I don't know, cold cuts, maybe meatball sub, you're having a cake sub. During this court battle, of course, Subway is saying, no, it's bread, okay? We checked, it's bread. The court found that a typical Subway 6-inch like sub roll, the bread, had about 6 grams of sugar, which is basically like 2 plain digestive biscuits. Yes, 2 biscuits. So I was reading online. Some people were saying that Americans are more likely to have sweet sandwiches or sandwich spreads. Like peanut butter and jelly is huge in America, and it kind of makes sense to have sweet bread with that, which is a separate tangent. If you are a British person, do you like peanut butter? Leave a comment down below. I was reading that. So first off, did you know that 2 US presidents were peanut farmers? incredible. Now, this statistic is from 2017, and it said that in the US, around 90% of households eat peanut butter. In the UK, for comparison, we were about 40%. So not nothing, but certainly not super popular. But on the thread of like Americans like sweet spreads or sweet sandwiches, and British people, that always kind of freaks me out. And British people are more likely to have savory spreads. I certainly think there is some truth to that. At Tesco, they certainly sell peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter, smooth peanut butter, organic peanut butter, but they do sell Marmite, which is probably the most savory spread in existence. So that actually kind of checks out. However, they also sell sweet spreads. Marmite, is there anything more British? Paddington, is there anything more British? So I got this Frank Cooper's Oxford marmalade. How absolutely gorgeous is that? I've never had it. So here we are. And I'm gonna claim this as a tax write-off. This toaster only got half of my bread. It's fine. So I do think there is some truth to Americans more likely to have a sweet spread. A lot of Americans like peanut butter and jelly. Brits consume Marmite, which is the most savory thing in the world. However, we do have a lot of sweet spreads like Marmite, not Marmite, like what's the word? Marmalade? Did I just have a stroke? Cheers. Maybe this is just the rest of the video, me eating marmalade. Now, while I was in Canada, I have to admit, I've never looked at the nutritional labels on bread before. It's just not something that I concern myself with. But while we were having lunch, I pulled out some of the bread products that we had in the house, like in the cupboard right then and there. One of them, of course, were everything bagels. I love a good bagel. I know you guys make fun of how I say that. Just let's move on. It's so hard to get everything bagels here in the UK. So every time I go home, I always have a couple. So I was just curious. So in these particular bagels, per one bagel, there were 2 grams of sugar. And then when I looked at the nutritional label, like the actual ingredients label, the order of ingredients were enriched wheat flour, water, and number 3 was sugar. The other type of bread we had was my mom's like ancient grains type bread. So this is what I would consider to be a healthy looking bread, right? It's brown. It's got stuff in it. It must be good for you. So for 2 slices of this bread, so you're making a sandwich perhaps, for 2 slices, it has 5 grams of sugar, which I found very surprising. And when I looked at the ingredients in the order that they were written, so number 1, we have whole grain wheat flour, then we have water, then we have the whole grains and seeds mix. So there's like a bunch of different seeds. And then number 4 was sugar. Now, while I didn't have it in the cupboard, I wanted to check Wonder Bread. How did that compare? So the Wonder Bread in Canada for 2 slices had 3 grams of sugar, which surprised me because it is less than the one with all the seeds in it. And like the other breads, I looked at the ingredients list, and this of course is the enriched wheat flour, water, sugar. So they are sort of forming a pattern, if you will. Now, I was curious if the Wonder Bread in America was made different, so I went onto Walmart USA. I just pretended that I was in California and I had a look, and for 2 slices, it was 5 grams of sugar. More than Canada. Now, there is a type of bread called sweet Hawaiian, which, please, British people, have you ever had this? Have you ever seen it in the UK? To be honest, I bet you it's banned because it's so sweet. But it is still labeled as bread in North America. Or you can get it as like rolls, like buns, but it is still considered like a bread product. But to be honest, you guys would probably hate it. So to make a sandwich with Pepperidge Farms Sweet Hawaiian bread. Now Pepperidge Farms is a large, very large brand. You might even recognize it. They do all sorts of stuff. To make a sandwich, okay, how many grams of sugar? Did you guess 12? And this label actually specifies for 2 slices, there are 12 grams of sugar with 10 grams being added sugar. So one would imagine 2 grams are like naturally produced sugar in terms of like the ingredients and whatever, but then 10 grams of added sugar. Now 1 slice of this sweet Hawaiian bread, just 1 slice, half a sandwich. We're not even talking about the innards of the sandwich yet. Just 1 slice is about the same amount of sugar as 1 Jaffa cake. Yes, a cake. 1 whole one, chocolate covered. So what about British bread? How does British bread compare? Well, just in terms of taste, British bread, that's difficult to say, is typically far less sweet tasting. It just tastes like bread. And the biggest difference I have found in my non-professional research, the difference between sugar and added sugar. So the majority of sliced white bread in the UK has no added sugars. There may be naturally occurring sugars, so I wrote this down. During the bread making process, some of the starch in wheat flour is broken down into simple sugars, but this is typically used typically used by the yeast during fermentation, and very little remains in the actual finished bread. Most UK sliced bread or wrapped bread falls under the category of low sugar foods. So this means it has to have less than 5 grams of sugar per 100 grams. And when you see the little, where is it? The little like nutritional chart on the front, the sugar will be green because it's considered, most bread in the UK is considered low sugar food. Now, if there are typically no added sugars, why include sugar here in the first place? This figure relates to the total amount of sugar in the product, which will include naturally occurring sugars and potentially added sugar. So for our Kingsmill 50/50, this is like a pretty well-known bread, I would assume. For any North Americans, do you guys have something like this? So it is a soft white bread, but with hidden whole grain, no bits. So if we look at the nutritional, what do you call this? The nutritional reference guide? I don't know. Each slice contains 1.4 grams of sugar. Compare that with the ancient grains bread that we had at home in Canada. 1 slice of that was 2.5 grams. This 1 slice is 1.4. And if we look at the ingredients list, so for the breads that I was looking at, the ones with the seeds, my bagels, Wonder Bread, all that kind of stuff, sugar was typically the 3rd or the 4th ingredient. On here, we have wheat flour, wholemeal wheat flour, water, yeast, salt, vegetable oils, blah, 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 sustainable soy flour, and then it goes on into like the less and less. So sugar is not listed here. I also had a look at some bread in Tesco. So for the Tesco white bread, perhaps that's the one that you buy, 1 slice is 1.5 grams of sugar. So if you are making a sandwich, you're looking at about 3 grams of sugar, which actually is the same as Wonder Bread in Canada, but not the US. The US has more sugar. I also looked at Warburton's, I can never say that properly, Warburton's, their farmhouse loaf. So on the front, it says per slice is 0.9 grams of sugar. So if you are making a sandwich, you're looking at 1.8 grams. But why would there be added sugars in the UK? So online, it seems that if sugar is added in small amounts, it's usually when they're trying to sort of compensate the bitter notes of wholemeal or like seeded breads. Where sugar is added, which is very important, Next time, go to the supermarket, look at the bread that you normally buy. Where sugar is added, it has to be clearly listed in the nutritional label, in the ingredients list. To compare it to my mom's like seeded bread back home, I found that Hovis now does this sunflower and pumpkin seed loaf, and each slice contains 1.3 grams of sugar. So 1.3 versus the 2.5 grams of sugar in the seeded loaf back home. So even comparing seeded loaves, where perhaps they want a little bit of sugar just to kind of help with bitterness, Canada is still quite a bit higher. I also saw this abomination, which is not related to this video whatsoever. They're making loaves with no crust. I'm sorry, what? I would also argue that it is really easy here in the UK and a lot of Europe as a whole to go to a bakery and get bread. That's it. Or even going to supermarkets that have a really lovely bakery section where there are lots of loaves that are reasonably priced, whether they're whole things, they're sliced, they're baguettes, whatever. I just feel from my own perception, it's so much easier to get bakery style, beautiful, lovely loaves compared to North America. My humble opinion. For comparison, back home, I have never walked to a bakery, that's first off, but I've also never driven the extra distance to go to a bakery specifically to get bread. It's not convenient. I've just never done it. Whereas here, I have very happily walked to bakeries or walked to the supermarket and gone to the bakery section to buy a beautiful loaf, a lovely baguette. It's a real privilege. So what's the point? What's the point of this video? That's a good question. I think this little experiment has opened my eyes to the concept of added sugar in places that I would not have expected it. I didn't know that typically bread in North America is sweeter. I didn't know that a lot of breads in North America have added sugar. They've got sugar right on the label. The third ingredient. That is not something that has ever come up in my life or in my experiences. I just didn't know. And it's definitely something that I can't unknow it now. Do you know what I mean? Like when I go home and I'm looking to buy some bread, it is something that I would consider. Now, where I eat American bread so infrequently, in the grand scheme of my life, it probably doesn't matter. But what about my friends and family back home who are stuck with breads that just have higher sugar, whether they want it or not? Now, thankfully, it does seem that in Canada, we are more likely to have lower amounts of sugar than our neighbors to the south. But all my friends and family in America, like that sucks. You're stuck consuming bread with sugar that you didn't even ask for. And it certainly helps me appreciate bread and the accessibility of bread and the cost of a good loaf here in the UK, because it is definitely something that is a privilege and it is something that I am very grateful for. So the next time you make a sandwich, have a look at your bread. You might be surprised. If you would like to watch more videos, which would be totally awesome, check out this one, Why Americans Don't Know About Blackcurrant. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!